Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to this wonderful gathering, this collaboration between beautiful, wonderful, delightful Mary Reed and her team Consensus and me and my wider team, who don't have a name, but my big team. And so together we're going to gather and collaborate and see what wants to come through to support us all in dissolving these old, ancient, primordial fear patterns that have been coming up to be dissolved now. And so we're going to talk a bit about that together. We're going to just introduce ourselves briefly and discuss that a bit more and go into some transmissions. Mary's going to bring through a transmission with Consensus, followed by my team and my light co-transmission. And we're open to how this wants to flow because this is a new thing, right? This is a new way of doing things. So we're both really excited and intrigued and sort of open to how basically love wants to move through us today and support all of us in these immense transformational energies that we're moving through at this time. And so Mary, do you want to say hi and take over a bit?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Emily. I am so excited about this. This just feels completely calm and perfect. And the lead up to this, it's just been like everything in me is like a yes, a great big yes. So this came about very naturally. Emily and I just sharing sort of where we're at, and I'll share more about what prompted it for me in just a minute. But it just seems like a natural point at which the collaboration in this way is important and timely. So we're going to give just a little bit of background because there's a lot of people that are joining because they know Emily, and some that are joining because they know me, and some just because a friend said that they should join today and they don't know either of us. So we're going to give just a brief background for you to understand what we're bringing through and our own abilities and histories with experiencing the matrix of the fear that we're going to be addressing today. And not just the fear, but the collective energies in general. So I'm a former agnostic healthcare executive that just unexpectedly 26 years ago began having these big metaphysical experiences. And then in the pandemic, 3 weeks into the pandemic, in addition to my big metaphysical experiences, I started to channel a really large collective of divine beings that call themselves consensus. And I experienced them in a stadium. It's that large of a collective. So when I channel, my guides are always, they put people in a kind of unitive meditative state, and then there's a transmission that comes through that I narrate. Now, in the reason they call themselves consensus is because every being in the stadium or every energy in the stadium is unique. Everything has its own energetic signature, intentions, experiences, etc. But when they all come together, there's kind of a divine harmony that happens, and that's the consensus vibration, and that's what I narrate. And they always say we're only here for what's happening in the moment. So the collective that's in the stadium is not the same each time. The composition differs depending on what the intention or purpose of a gathering is. So we don't parse out who's in there and all of that. We just feel the energy that's present here. And then that's what I narrate. Now, while I'm narrating, there's a whole lot of other things going on. I'm experiencing numerous movements and knowings and etc. And that's the fullness of what's being translated or transmitted. But I'm narrating kind of a condensed vibration that comes out in words. And I never know what that's going to be. So we're going to be surprised by what they have to say today. So I'm going to say more about my experience with the fear pieces that are coming up in just a minute, but I'll let Emily, maybe you want to do just your brief background as well, and we'll start there.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Mary. Well, it's in a way similar to me, very different, but similar. So I started on, my journey's kind of been very much through healing and health, my own health challenges and healing trauma, actually. So I've had a long relationship with fear and fear coming up in my body to, work through. And this has been part of my journey. And so coming into this where I am now was really a journey of healing. But I started like you to have very weird and strange to the human part of me, metaphysical experiences, very mystical, uncomprehendable experiences, quite a lot. And I was sort of went deep dive into this new abilities. Suddenly a whole world was opened up to me where I could see and move energies out of the blue. And it was quite alarming to my human mind to be able to suddenly see all this stuff, this whole other realms. And I realized just through this immersive experience that I had the abilities to work with and move these energies. And so as the time went on, this sort of developed through me without any external teachings, learning. It was an organic, natural, immersive, and emergent experience. And so out of that came light language, like you. One day, out of the blue, I was suddenly, it was like a tap turned on, and I started speaking light language or light codes, and it never turned off. And this became a whole way of expression, but so much more. So, in addition to me having developed this ability, or remembered, you could say, all along, that I was able to access these abilities to work with energy, I became aware that not only do I speak light language, but my whole energetic structure is like a portal or portals to access high dimensional frequencies as codes transmitted through sound and light. So it merges with me all the time. And so I became aware that I'm constantly in flow and receptive to these light codes. And so when I bring transmissions through, very much like Mary, I have a very big team, but I don't just channel my team. I kind of merge, my team director merge with me to bring these light codes and language through, but also a lot of the frequencies I access are not from beings. They are from places or spaces and things to assist. And like you, it's never static. As people have been with me for quite a while can hear that my light codes have changed dramatically. Because my team is always in flow every day. They gather, you could say, to depending on what I'm going to be bringing and doing and what's most needed to support people. And so very much like you, Mary. And so I go into a very receptive state. Well, I don't actually have to do anything. You can see it's just always here. And so it's just when I go into that focus place, I can bring through a transmission that most serves the group. And the way I work, as most people who do know me, is really through the body. So because I'm a portal, I direct through the body, and what happens through my body tends to mirror what is happening within you, the collective. And so as I bring the energy work, the light codes assist in multidimensional ways for essentially healing, transformation, and returning to the truth of wholeness that we already are.
Yeah, perfect. And I love what you said about what's happening in you is mirroring what's happening in the collective. That's very much the case. And a lot of it is, in my experience, we're sort of, on the leading edge. So we're knowing what's coming for the collective because it's experienced through us first or as part of it. All right, so we're going to now talk about how this is very present, what brought this really to the surface and really inspired this particular session. So I have a long history of really extensive clearings, and not just my own journey, but in the collective as well. I'm deeply tied to collective clearings. And I do this for my own journey, but also with people I'm in consultations with and that sort of stuff. But I've had numerous really big sessions in which there was a large scale clearing within my life, my existence, my lifetimes, and my part in the collective, all the ways that I've been tethered to the collective for years and years and years. So there's many of them. And the core of what clears is foundations of fear, patterns of fear, collective histories of fear, etc. And so, generally speaking, because of the extensive nature of these clearings over the years, I have an extraordinary um, sort of peaceful, quiet state of being. I don't have a lot of fear in my system, I, for years now, have been just a very quiet mind. I don't have looping thoughts. I don't have fear about how I appear or money or situations in the world. I don't have any of those kinds of thoughts. They're not in my day-to-day kind of awareness. So I don't live, I live basically a very fearless kind of life. I'm deeply still and present and quiet internally. I do, however, I notice when I'm in a car with somebody on a freeway, I have a tension that rises in my body and it feels disorienting in some ways. And I have written this off. I've noticed it more recently in the past few years, and I've written it off to the fact that I don't actually own a car, so I don't drive a lot. And I have a historically medical issue with my left ear, so I have some imbalance issues. So I wrote it off to kind of a disorientation that creates a sense of fear when I'm a passenger in a car on a freeway. Um, so recently in May, I went to Iceland with my friend and colleague Lisa Dewey. And if you've ever been to Iceland and you've been on the outside of the main roads in the fjord areas, the roads are really narrow. They're two-way, but they have no shoulder. So they're narrow and they have no shoulder. And they're windy, they're around mountain curves with no guardrails. They suddenly turn into a gravel road or a one-way bridge, or there's high winds, or you're going over a mountain pass and there's snow and ice all around you. So there's a lot of conditions on these roads that that are dangerous, very dangerous in some situations, and that in me very quickly triggered this tension. What I didn't know was held in my field was this really clear feeling of this fear that was triggered by those roads very early in the trip that was attached to a sense of feeling unsafe, really distinctly. And it was tied back to my childhood, to my father. I grew up with a very violent, aggressive, reckless father who drove very recklessly. And I used to have nightmares as a child about a lot of um, pending death experiences with my father driving. So I did not know that this was in my system. And because I don't have to access it at all usually. But what was important about this trip was that not only did it get triggered early on, but it got sustained and amplified because the trip was for 15 days of driving. So every single day, we're in different road conditions. We're going in remote areas where less than 10% of people travel, and the roads reflect that. So it was just intensified and intensified, and I couldn't shake it. At night, I would try to, my body needed a lot of relief, but I was really aware that, oh, I have something that has come up for attention, and it won't be denied. It's not going to be denied. I'm on this trip for 15 days. We're already committed. It's going to happen. So when I came back from that trip, knowing that I had this activation of something unconscious, deeply unconscious in me, I scheduled an EMDR session with my other friend and colleague in Australia, Corrine Crossan. Both Lisa and Corrine are on my website, and I'm going to talk about that work later. So I scheduled an EMDR session with Corrine, knowing that this is something that's activated and up for clearing. But by now, because it had been 15 days, it's not only staying present, it's a terror. It's literally a terror, and I can't release it. So I had one EMDR session with Corrine. And if you know anything about EMDR, normally you will focus in on kind of a triggering memory, and then you do a back and forth, a bilateral movement with your eyes that kind of relaxes and detaches deeply ingrained old patterns. The idea is that some pattern is stuck in the brain, usually on the right side of the brain. So the bilateral movement sort of opens things up and releases that memory, releases some pattern related to that trigger. But what happened with me was that everything that was, all the memories that were stirring around in me were more of a collage. I could not hone in on a singular kind of memory from childhood or anything like that. So we just went into the terror of the trip, the terror of the driving that happened. And as this happened, there was like this sudden just burst of all of childhood memories, just boom, 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 boom. Things I hadn't thought about in ages. I didn't remember until this time. So it was like a lot of things released. And I could feel in my brain like a scrambling. There was like a scrambling of patterns in my brain. And as this released more and more and more, it would just, I could feel it all, releasing and releasing and releasing. And then I suddenly realized that, when we talk about or we think about our childhood, there's like a memory here that we speak about and a memory here that we speak about. And they're usually traumatic moments or important moments that we remember. But what happened was, as all of this is coming up, what I tapped into was the times between the memories. So it's like the threads that hold childhood structure of memories in place. And that was what was all present and activated and available for clearing within me. So literally my entire childhood, not just the memories of childhood, but the framework that was held within my system of childhood, which was all built in fear, growing up in a very dangerous, reckless kind of household. It also tied to relationship with my brother and the trajectory of relationships into adulthood and the pain and grief that I had in that loss and the horror that I had of watching my brother experience a lot of the abuse that he and I actually experienced together. So all of these various things came up and all of them cleared, every single bit of it. And when it was all sort of at the end, what I heard was, I heard it very clearly, childhood is done. And so it's like it's a completion of all of this stuff that was being held until there was a capability in me and an availability in the collective for this scale to end. So all of that framework was complete. Now, if you know anything about EMDR, you know that it normally takes about 5 to 12 sessions to really process a lot. And I just did it all in one fell swoop. Now, that speaks to a couple of things. My own capability is quite significant and experienced, but also just things are sitting on ready. Just in the field, things are sitting on ready. And I'm experiencing this in consultations and private sessions and with the community as well, that it's just like you barely touch something and it just falls apart. So there's already a lot of almost like an anticipation of crumbling in the matrix in these patterns. So this is what I was conveying to Emily about, I could feel all of this stuff, this very unseen, unconscious infrastructure within me that now just was collapsing. And so I'll turn it over to her to talk about, well, let me tell you what was happening with me at the same kind of time.
Yeah, well, thanks, Mary. I didn't hear that whole story there, so that's amazing. And yes, I feel that availability is there now. It is like, and I feel like when I work with my team, it's kind of similar where we just can go in and pull one thread and
Mhm.
it kind of unravels the whole structure or the whole framework that's been holding that collective theme or consciousness or whatever in place. And it's available to do that now, because the foundational structures are shifting and there isn't that so much of that foundation anymore. This is able to happen. But yeah, it's interesting because I've had a lot of fear in my journey to deal with. It's been a very strong theme that I chose to come in with, a lot of ancestral trauma and stuff. Let's just say stuff to work through. And so I've been unraveling from layers and layers of that. But when we had the conversation, when you came back from Iceland, I've been speaking to several people and myself who would be going through a particularly mm, well, this is coming up at this time particularly strongly for a lot of people, right? Deep primordial fear, survival fears, not feeling safe in many ways. For me, I tend to process and release things very somatically, and so I have my own way of kind of moving through this stuff, and it's layers and layers and layers, fear of being seen, fear of this, fear of that, fear of that, fear of that, fear of that. And but what I've been doing recently has been deeper and deeper than ever before, where I have been, like you, kind of able to get to this core place, sort of, whether it's actually the root, but it feels like a real foundational place where this unraveling can happen. And for me, so the way I work is just being present, and my team work with me to work through the body, sort of unraveling these pathways within the body. And the time we spoke, I'd just been moving through my maternal lineage and my paternal lineage, and going back, and I sort of working down the legs into the earth. And a lot of this is going down to the earth, and I want to talk to you about that, because a lot of this is connected to the earth, right, and
Yeah.
held within the earth. And so as we do this within ourselves, we are also working within stuff held within the earth. But so I was going for, so I'll give you an example of what came up for me. So I started to get some lower left back pain, and I immediately heard fear of your needs not being met just came
Mm.
to my awareness. So I was like, oh, well, that's familiar. Okay. But what happened was I sort of went in and went on this sort of journey down this thread, back through my whole maternal lineage to the root of where that originated. And I can't even begin to talk to you about that, because it would take hours. And also, I was in a kind of channeled state, so I can't even remember a lot of what came up, but it was just I was sort of in this state. And it's actually really interesting. I don't know if you experience this, Mary, where you're so present. I remember the window being open and hearing the breeze moving through a tree outside while I was doing this, but I had no reference for where that was. Like, I couldn't say if that was left, right, up, down. It's like there's no time and space, and I was able to therefore be in this now moment, accessing all of that through my system into the earth, and sort of pulling, like you said, that thread and unraveling the whole lot. And I did the same through my paternal lineage, which was also very fascinating, because that went back to the origins of this fear of death, essentially,
Mm.
when we came in and have that split, polarity, birth, death. We suddenly became terrified of death, and survival, and our nervous system started to go into that fear response. And then eons and eons and eons of layers and layers and layers built upon that then created so much that we've been living out in this sort of the collective field, which is ready to literally dissolve now,
Mhm.
not hold. And so that's sort of been my experience working sort of through my body. So very interesting. It is like, as we unravel those threads, it's like a new spaciousness comes in that allows you to be in a much more in living in that spaciousness and wholeness, where you can be with these things. Now, what I've found is that for me, I've it is literally often terror that comes up, right? It's terror.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it takes time to develop the capacity to be with that, but really feeling the fear, because it's very easy to go into fear of the fear,
Yeah.
right? And we resist it at all costs. But when you're able to, and it can take time to do this, and we'll share a bit about this later with resourcing yourself, but when you can actually feel all of it, it's something powerful in that. Feeling all of it allows it just to discharge, because it's not actually the pure emotion that's the problem. It's it's the resistance to it that causes the tension and the suppress, because we don't know it's often there. And so when we're able to be in this state where it can come up, to be felt, to be experienced, and simply move through, the charge goes. That sort of you could say knot in the system is unwound,
Yeah.
and the light and their life force energy can circulate in that whole regenerative way that it's designed to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I better stop
Perfect.
there.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That's a great setup. I want to just comment on three things that you mentioned just briefly. First of all, the collaboration and partnership with Earth. Now, it was no accident that my everything came up for me in Iceland. If you've ever been to Iceland, you'll know there's nowhere where you have a relationship to Earth like you do in Iceland. It's unavoidable. It's so powerful because it's sitting on all of this volcanic undertow, and then it's glacial. So it's literally the land of fire and ice. And it was the land itself that was giving me the triggers, just, working around the entire island. So this is also coming up in lots of different ways. Emily and I are going to be co-facilitating a retreat in England in the fall, very much focused on relationship to the land around Avebury and other areas there. So Earth is very much here for us in that way. The second thing I want to just reiterate here is this idea of primordial patterns releasing, because what we're doing here is really going to, and this word unsafe is important because ultimately that's all fear is. It doesn't feel safe. It's afraid, right? That's its nature. But the primordial purity of that is what's coming up now for available stuff. And we're able to go into literally kind of a primordial architecture, this architecture that's set up for us to be able to walk through life literally with an infrastructure built in patterns of fear. And so now this architecture, the primordial architecture is being attended to. This is the thing that's now finally available to us individually and collectively. So as we address these things in the body on a personal level, we're also addressing that presence in the collective as well. We're just inciting and mobilizing more and more of that opening at a primordial level, which relates to the third thing I want to say, which is origins. So I've spoken many times about, those of us who are here at this time in our world are not here to play small. We didn't come to attend to the symptoms of suffering or separation. We came to deal with the origins of it, to stop the bequeathing and the cycling through of these continued suffering patterns. So when you said going through that maternal lineage all the way back to its origins, yes, that's exactly what we're doing. And so the dissolution process that's happening in different stages now is all attending ultimately to that. We're kind of untying the knots to the anchor that was holding us down in the suffering paradigms of fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
lovely.
beautiful. All right, now I think that's everything we want to say as background. So let me just make sure here. Yes. Now I'm going to do a transmission with consensus. Emily is going to follow right up with the light codes transmissions from her team. And then we're going to talk a little bit about if there's anything we want to talk about what came through. And then we're going to talk about what may follow up with all of you as a result of sitting in the presence of this, whether you're live or listening to the recording, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to talk about some resources for support. Okay, so we're going to try to hit all of the bases that can be the highest service and support for everybody in this. As a reminder, please keep your mute button. Don't touch buttons while we're doing this to accidentally start your video or your sound while we're doing this. And we checked our sound settings. We hope that everything comes through. We both have a lot of different kinds of sounds sometimes that hopefully won't get cut out with the settings that we have. So with that said, if you have water with you, you can take a sip of water. We are going to invite everybody into a meditative state. This is how consensus works. This is a unitive experience. You're not just listening, you're feeling. The same will happen I assume, with Emily as well. So let's begin. Emily, I love you. Everybody that's here, thank you so very much for your presence. Your presence helps to anchor and amplify the field. So we thank you very much for everybody in attendance. Okay, let us begin here now with, first of all, we're just going to let everything that has been spoken so far now just begin to drift away. We don't need to replay, sort through, try to remember. Everything is being offered in the way that it is so that we can just be fully present, fully in the now, fully in this collective field. Let's take a nice, good deep breath in, please. And just let the breath guide you gently, sweetly into a deeper relaxation, resting your eyes, feeling the breath opening the body, moving things in a kind of an unfolding flow. Yeah, we can already feel a lot of the fear that has been brought to this gathering, which is beautiful. That is our intention, to be the embrace and the welcome of fear today. Take another good deep breath in. And again, just feel the breath flowing down through the field and out. You might imagine that just this movement is helping to release little micro tensions that we tend to hold. Yeah, now we're also starting to feel a lot of the fatigue. So, the human experience alone really carries a lot of exhaustion, and fear in particular is carrying such a burden, such a weight, and we can feel a lot of that here in the field. So we're just simply acknowledging the presence here, all that is present in the field. And we will remind you, this is a visceral experience. We're guiding you into the availability of sensation, tuning into what we feel, what we know in an embodied way. So we're letting our mind beautifully relax here. Now, as we just say that, we can feel some sadness coming in. We can feel a lot of patterns already moving around the brain, in the body. Beautiful. Another good deep breath in, please. And again, just use the breath. Let the breath sweetly take care of us here. Feel this beautiful permission. Permission is the correct word. Permission to profoundly relax and open up. You might imagine just laying all the fears on the field of the stadium. We don't have to carry them. We don't have to exclude them. We definitely don't need to exclude them at all. We don't need to do anything with them. We're simply allowing them here. And you may feel yourself relaxing in any kind of space. Where you are, in the stadium, doesn't matter. Just relaxing while we just lay all the fears down. Yeah, now as we're speaking this, we feel a lot of sadness and the tears of exhaustion. Now, if you find yourself in this moment very strongly chatting about this, narrating about this, wondering where this fear is, or trying to self-direct here to go get some from a past experience or whatever, we will encourage you to allow the mind, your gorgeous mind, to understand that this is an act of love for the mind, and that has all along been holding the fear, the burdens. So as we rest our fears here, our mind can snuggle up alongside. And we just come back into the feeling, tuning into the energy. Now, all we're doing here is preparation in this moment. And this is important. We are setting a tone of presence here. A tone of availability, a tone of willingness. Now, one more time, please. A good deep breath in. And a relaxing, soothing, comforting breath out. Whatever you feel is welcome. We don't need to tell a story about what we feel. We just feel it. It is as it is. Now, in the invitation to lay the fears down here, as though we are laying them out on the field of our stadium, you might imagine that everything that's being laid in a relaxing way here is everything embedded through the energies of fear that we have carried individually and collectively. And this includes our beliefs, our stories, the repetition of going back to trauma and pain, and always relating to it through the same lens. A profound desire again and again, relentlessly, to be finished with the pain, to live fearlessly. And as was mentioned earlier, the fear of the fear. We don't want to face or feel the things we're afraid of. All of this, like a treasure trove, like an offering onto the field in the stadium. Now, we're doing this in an intentional way, softly, gently, to not create any kind of any intimation of a force or insistence. This is an invitation and an embrace. Now, we say these words specifically for your fear to hear. An invitation and an embrace. The environment that we are inspiring here is entirely the energies of divine love. And we have invited the fear to be seen fully, to literally be the center of attention. We do not have to name everything or go in and individually try to find what to put here. The energies will flow on their own, conscious and unconscious. We are addressing here deep, deep in the infrastructure of being, in the infrastructure of the field. There needs to be no directing. Things will flow on their own. Now we will invite one more good deep breath in, please. And as you breathe out, just imagine breathing all of this energy out through the heart and down into the field of the stadium. If you need to just imagine it, that's fine. Now, we're going to do something akin to a binding here of the energies in a unitive state. So we're going to take another good deep breath in, and this time as we breathe out, you might imagine just all boundaries disappearing, and we're just feeling ourselves in the unitive state more and more. Good deep breath in. And just feel this breath moving all boundaries. There's just this beautiful dissolution, and we're opening up to a unitive feel. That the sense of being has no boundaries in its depths, in its reaches, in its vastness. Energetically, we're opening wide, feeling the availability of all of this field of love, the inherent field of love. Now we're taking our time here intentionally because there's a lot of very subtle profusion happening here. As was mentioned at the beginning, there is much more happening than what is being articulated. So we're allowing this to happen in a very easy, subtle, gentle way, like a seeping through. Now we will say here what is happening as we foster a unitive sense in this field, simultaneous to the awareness of how we feel. We are also engaging with all of the structures of fear upon the field without interference, without a fear of that being active. So our focus here, holding you in the sensations of union, allow a very deep and very gentle alchemy. There is also a very easy, we might add, a transmission here, a communication here between this unitive state, the love here, communicating throughout all of the fear energies here, both what has been laid upon the field and also what has not yet been released for embrace yet. The communication here is an honoring, a recognition, a humble gratitude for the innocence and care inherent in the nature of fear. This is very important to acknowledge. The only thing fear knows how to do is be afraid. And in its fear, it has tried so valiantly to take care of everything, to take care of us, to take care of our world. But the only resources it can access are more fear. Thus, the infrastructure, threaded through every aspect of life, built in the substance of fear. So we acknowledge this, the loneliness inherent in it, the blame persistent in it. The battle, chronic battle inherent in it. The relentless, endless desire for fear to go away. And all the pain that resulted from a life built in fear. The conflict relationship is extensive. In fact, it is primary in the architecture of fear. It is why you know you live in a world where conflict is everywhere, including our own being, our own thoughts. Conflict with ourselves, conflict with others, conflict with the world. It is inherent in the infrastructure of fear. And what a burden. We are careful in our words here to choose that which can be recognized, felt, and taken in by fear. We're not here in battle. We're here in remembrance. We know what you are. We know that you are love in a movement away from love, in a forgetfulness in that way. And we are the remembrance, holding up the mirror of this energy for you to see that you have never been anything but love. Now, in the experience of love in its forgetfulness, in its idea and belief, in separation from itself, the range of experiences have been unfathomable, rich, multidimensional, rich, rich, rich. This is again the honoring and the recognition of all that has been afforded in ways to understand self with a capital S, to understand life and love through a lens that was not available in any other form but fear, but a separation consciousness incited by fear, because fear on its own cannot unite, because it is afraid. So all we're doing here is acknowledging, inciting a deep, profound remembrance. And in so doing, in this very gentle way, inciting a reconciliation, a profound, extensive understanding of all that was created in the world of fear. And the continuum is vast and not linear, multi-dimensional. From the greatest joys to the deepest suffering. and all that each and every experience incited in reaction or response through learning and growing and evolving. This is the acknowledgement of all the ways we have deepened in the richness of being through fear. This is a celebration. It is also the recognition of all of the burden that this fear has bore all along. It has carried the weight of the suffering. It has carried the burden of blame, resentment, hatred. Never being able to feel sated in its burdens because of its belief in separation. The time has come now for the great act of love, the great movement of love, to not only dissolve all of the infrastructures in the burdens of fear, but to reunite. It is the greatest act of love possible. Now, in the experience here, in the energies palpable upon the field, there is a great deal of wailing, of relief, of disbelief, shock, the activation of more fear of what happens when I'm not here. All understandable, all present, all perfect and precious. So we will attune again in our awareness collectively here back into the unitive state. Please take a good deep breath in through your heart. And just feel this breath out like a radiance in all directions. We're not directing anything to anything in particular. We're allowing all the energetic flow to happen without interference in the highest way possible in this moment. That which is in the highest interest of every individual and most importantly, the collective. It can be no other way. Now, as we hold the field in this manner, in the collective way that we are in this moment, we will turn things over to Emily and her team.
Thank you, Consensus. And so I'm just going to have some water and invite everyone to stay in this beautiful state. And I'll bring through the light codes now that most support us all. So I invite you to stay centered in your heart, Drashanira, 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 drashanira. Drum anai adrasha ye. Drum akatrasha ye. Drum akatrasha ye. Aniatrat isha Idrakatrat ishaya om. Trasha idrakete inya adrakadrum katagashay. Tratte etrat itirat ishaya om. Wakranirtumeya, adrasha, drakadrum akater eshayania, dratrum akatarkashay, adra atrum akatakashaya, adre ete edra atum adraketikashayani, adrum akatarkasha away. So I'm still centered in the heart, just working to the left of the heart area, of the left of the field. Dreketere esha iene, dranisha ienia. Itre e katara e shayanum. Trum a katara e sha yanei. Tre e te katara a shayum e te e tra e shani. Tra na atra katrum a katakashay. Trutum, 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 trutum. Drutukutor shikatakashay. Trum a katakashay. Atra atrum a katakashay ania. Atre e te e tra at o e tra kate e tra at isha yanei. Trum a katara a sha we e tre eshe yanea. So come from the bottom of the sternum through the center of the stomach, solar plexus area. Tere eshe ani, tere asha yanea, e tere katere esha yanei, trum akate esha wea, tere kutrum akate keteke, e tere ateketera, 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 ateketera. So I'm holding on the belly now, cupping with my palm, reaching high above the head. Tran ishenira, coming into the crown. Waka tera katre ete keshe, tran eshe, tromakate eshe. Olomane, tatututu, tatashikadikeshenia. Coming to the whole round, the left side of the skull. Trashe, tran eteke, trashe, nya, trakudurma katakesheya, treshe, nya, trakudurma kete, tromane, anea. Working around the left side of the skull behind the ear. Trakeate etranishe, atrasha. Atraketra atiania. Traketere ete etra ateke etra ateketra ete ea. Wak trakomakate keke trakoromakatra esheya nia. Tra ateke etere e esha yanon. Etere eke atrasha yanea. Etra odrom akateke esheyani. Adre esha yanea. Adra katrat isheya. Odrom akatrat isheyania. Odrom. So I've come all the way round the left side of the skull to the nape of the neck, so right at the base of the skull, in this little divot here. And so I'm kind of hooking right up into this space, going into the, feels like the brain stem here. Tran isheyania, trotoma katar ashe. Adre eketere esheania, trakotruma katake. Trotum. Tekete keshetikerat. Otro katakesheyani. Adre kete etra at odorme esheani. Eatra ate ete etra ate etra ate e atra eketere atum atra ate esha awe atra ketere ashanum enea tra ate ete atra atro makate kete working very delicately up this back of the skull here. And little massages. Aie, eate, 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 trate, atera, ate, ate, atra, atrum, akete, etra, ate, ete, 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 tumea. Ikea, trakatum. Treketra, ate, ketra, orum, atrakatorum, akate, eshe, ya. Atra, 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 tu, 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 ume, ate, 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 ate. Traneshe, 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 trakrum, ekeanishe, ania. Working very slowly up the back of the skull. Kiane. Kiane. Edrasheyanea. Adira atikra at isha idra ate idra ate isha ya drakiatra sha ye. Dre edra sha dra ete edre ete edre 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 ete e. Drum 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 drum. So I'm right at the back of the skull now, doing sort of this twisting, gentle motion. Yatere ete sheani, trate etrat isha yom, trakatra ate ete 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 ete. Traneshe, tranashe, plum akatra kete etrasha tra ete etre ete etre ete etre ete e. Ai sheani, ashayanom, trakete eshayam, etrasha yenea, trom akatre sheyani, atre eketera ate eshe yom etrat inyate ya eatra katre eshayene, onum atra katrom akate ekete etrat esha, anea, 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 anoromane atra at eketera at eshe, eanom, 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 right up at the crown now. Atrashe, etrashe, 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 etrashe. Trum, 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 trum. Atrasha, 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 atrasha. Ya sheyanea, trasheum, edra ketre eshayea. Tromate, trasha, trasha, trasha. Trum, etrakatra asha yom, trakatra ateshe, atrakate keshe, atrakata keshe, atrakata keshe. So work down from the crown all the way down to this midpoint of the hairline, holding here, still in the belly area. Tre ete shaya, idra asha yom, tra katra et ishat, idrakat isha yom. Tre iterat isha trat idra ete shaya. Tre ketra ate shayanea. Ufit idrakat Itira akatrat isha yane 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 adrakate edrat ufwe. Trum atakata kete kata katukotum takate keshei. Tra e tra a tra e tra a tra e tra a tra e tra a. Coming down the center of the forehead slowly. E tra at iterat a isha yane. Adrakete edrahat ufwe. Traka 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 tu 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 tu. Coming down to the third eye area. Deep breath. Dra asha, dra ete sha ye. O ne adra kia te she yeni. Kia tere isha yan adrat inyatrom akate isha yom. Come across to the left temple. Itere kia terat isha terat ofwe. Iterakate, 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 terat isha yane. Terat isha yane. Terat isha yane. Coming to the top of the left ear. Iane aye onorome aniahat. Trakodoroma katakashe. Working all around the outer rim of the left ear. To the behind the left earlobe. Adrasha, adrasha, adrasha. To the chin. Trane sheani, drasha, tronome, atrekete sheania. Tromakatra shatret, ishatret, ishatret, ishatret. Adrasha yom, itrakate shayani. Trate etrat inyom, itrat ishatrat inya. Aniatrat ishanom, itrat ishayani. Working slowly down the throat. Ikietere esha niatum itere ete. Itere eta asha yanom. Ja kienira atrat isha noromania at trakotrum ikiete isha ya atre ete etra ate atre eteke trat ofwe trakete isha yan edrat isha yane etre iketrat ofwe. Coming right down into the divot between the collarbones. Deep breath. Ea shayanom, ea shayanom, ea shayanom, ea shayanom. Trashea, trashea, yome. Trakiate, yaneshe, trakianeshe, yane. Trakete, ya, ofwe. Traka, 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 tu, 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 tu. Working across the left collarbone. Trake, 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 tu, tu. Trake, teke, teke, shatrum, atrake, teke, she, yaha. Trake, tra, ateshe, atrakatrum, akatekeshe. Working steadily across to the left shoulder. Yanasheo, yanasheo, wakano, wakano, trakitara, nitarana. Yanasheo, yanasheo, wakano, wakano, trakitara, nitarana too. So now I'm rotating, holding in the left shoulder and rotating the shoulder. Adrasha, 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 tratuma, trateketra, ateketra, 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 ateketra. Wah, trakatekete, trakodromakateke. Tra ete, 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 ufe, trakete, adrasha, yanea. Really coming into this left shoulder joint. Trakete, etrakatromatekete, etrasha. Trakete etrakate ekerahat inyatrat yanasheo wakano trakitara nitarana. Holding in this left shoulder muscle. Yanasheo, 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 yanasheo. Adre eshayane. Working slowly down shoulder muscle. Itrekate eshayane. Etere eshaya itrakate eshayani. Tra ashatrat inyatrum eashe. Ayatrakatre nisha onome. Itrashatrat ishe. Atrakatrum akete keshayani. Itrashayanea ome. Irashatre eanom. Iane, iane, iane. Atrashaye, atrashaye. Trakrum karatra etrashayane. Atrasha, atrasha, atrasha. Wakraneurutumeya. Trake, 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 tutu, mehe. Etrekete, 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 tutu, 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 wakraneurutumeya. Traketera ateshe. Atrasha yomea nea. Adrasha yene anom. Treke aneshe. Traka anenye. Tromakatra yanome. Anetrashe. Anea. Atrakrome aneshe yanome. Trake aneshe. Traneshe. Oe, oe. Yanasheo, wakunu, trakitara nitarana. Troto etrakete keshe. Itrekete kete keshe yani. Atrakate etrahat ofwe. Tra ate ke e tra ate ke te e tra kate e sha wet e trat e sha we. Trakotro makata keshe. Moving from the left shoulder to the left waist. Doing some massaging here. Ayashe, tirekete eshe, trenisha trat inyate, trakadromane, iatrasha yene, atronomate ea, adrasha, trakrum, ike trat ishat inyatro akate esheya. Working all the way down to the left hip, into the left hip bone now. Ateke yani, itekasha yate edrat. Iano normane, idrakete eshayene, idrat eshat ome drat idrat isha ufe. Coming deep into this left hip. Kiane. Kiane. Eashe anrakatre ashatrat omeane. Treketra te shaye. Adreketra shatrat inyatra asha. Idrashayane. Adrashayane. Adrakutrum akateke edrakate esha yane. Treketra a. Ketra ate. Andratrume ane. Adrakatrumane. Adrakete edrakatum. Idrakete edrahat ufwe. So coming from this hip bone inwards. Yanasheu, 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 Yanasheu. So I'm coming through the left groin area. Trakete, etrakete, 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 etrakete. Trotum, ikarakashenia. Traka, tutu ume, ete eshe, inyatre kesheni, aneshe, anetrat, itrashanom. So we're in the root chakra now. Trakete etrakete ishayane. Otomakata keshe. Trakatrum, ikete keshenia. E atrasha yanom. Trakatum akatum. Trakete keshayana. Trotum akata Trakutrum akata keshe. Yanasheo, wakunu, trakitara nitarana. So we're just going a bit deeper into this root area. I'm still cupping the lower belly with my palm, coming into the deeper areas of the root. Yanasheo, 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 Yanasheo. Trakatre sheyan, trakate eshayeya. Trakatrum, akatrum, trutum. Coming up from the belly to the left side of the forehead. Trakete e esha yene. Trake atrasha yanom. Trakete etrat isha yom. Trakete etrakatum atra esha yanom. Working all across the left forehead. Trake atre esha yene. Left brow. Trake atrat esha yan. Onome etrakate. Easha o. Easha o e. Trakete esha ye. Trum ate ketrat isha. Trat urum etrakate esha yene. So now to the left of the left eye, so the left temple. Trome, 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 trome. Trakate, etrakatrum, akatekeshe. Yanasheo, wakanu, toki tarani tarana. Coming all the way over to the left ear again, to the inner left ear. Atre esha yani. Eatra at eniatre esha. Trekania she, drakania she, drakan edrahat. Yane. Yanasheo, 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 Yanasheo. So come down to the left jaw. Trakete esha yanom, trakete etrasha ya etrahat ishe. Working down the left side of the jaw. Tre etrasha ne etranishe. Trakitra nesha yom. Tre at isha yanom. Tra at isha yane. To the chin. Yanasheo, wakanu. Trakitra nitarana. So we're just going to hold here a moment in the root and this chin point. Yanasheo, wakanu. Trakitra nitarana. Come over to the right jaw now. Atrasha yane, atrasha yanom, trashe yanea trashea yeanom, trashea nea nom, idrakatakashi. Working up the right jaw to the same point on the right ear, just in front of the right ear now, holding here. Yanasheo, wakanu, turkitara nitarana, tra ateke edrasha nyatra at isha yanom, trakete edrahat isha yanom, tre e. Turtum akatakashei, trakotrum akatakasheyanum. Iketirahat ufwe. Yanasheo, wakanu, tokitara nitarana. Now moving up to the right side of the skull. Ai shayane ara trat itrat ikiani trakatrat oe trakea trat ishayom trakea trakatrum katekeshe yaha trakom trakatekeshe tere troma katekeshe. Working all through the right side of the skull down to the back, the base on the right side of the skull now. Yanasheo, wakanu, turkitara nitarana. Coming all the way in to the top of the neck on the right side. Yanasheo, wakanu, turkitara nitarana. Trakeasha yono. Tre etrasha, trat isha yono. Anrakatare esha yane. Trekete etrakatrum atekeshayani. Wakranur to meya. Wakranur to meya. Hatrash inyat. Trotum. Hatrat isha ufwe. Trekete etrakete. Trutu etrashikateshayania. Ufwe. Trakot romakateshay. So I'm just doing a little bit of massaging in this point on the base of the right side of the skull as it meets the neck. Yanasheo, 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 Yanasheo. Kiane. Kiane. Coming all the way around now, slowly, to behind the right ear. Yanashu, 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 Yanashu. Walking to me, Trashe, 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 Trashe. Coming to the right side of the neck now. Yadrasha, Yanea. Just holding here. Dra edresha yane. Dra adrasha yane. Kiane shenum. Working slowly down the right side of the neck. Moving all the way down to the right collarbone. Holding here. Yanasheo, Yanasheo, Wakunu, Wakunu, Trakitara Nitarana, Trakete Eshayane, Trakta Anyat, Anyat, Inyat, Inyat, Trum Akata Keshe, Atre Ete, Etra Ate, Etra Ate, Etra Ate, Oatra Akiatra Isha, Fit, Itrak At, Itrat, Ikat, Orum Akatrat Isha, Uwe, Trakutrum Akata Keshe, Tre Ete, Etra Ete, Etra Ete, Etra Ete, Anyatra Shayani, Yatre Esha Yanum. Coming into the right in the middle of the collarbones now. Holding here. Yanasheo, Yanasheo, Okunu, Okunu, Tokitara, Nitarana, Trashe, 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 Trashe. So there's a lot of light flowing through this point. Walking over to me, walking over to me, trashe, 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 tu 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 trum, 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 takata kete keshe, takata katokon, takata keshe. Yanasheo, Yanasheo, walking turkitara nitarana. Shayana Cotoriana, Shayana Cotoriana, Shayana Cotoriana, Akatakashiniha, Adrsha, Drsha, 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 Tutum, Etrahat, Kiane, Kiane, Shayana Cotoriana, Shayana Cotoriana, Shayana Cotoriana, Akatakashiniha, Adrsha, Drsha, 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 Tutum, Trakatum, Atrahat. So I'm just massaging this point. Yanasheo, Yanasheo, Wakano, Wakano, Trokitara Nitarana, Trakatra Eshe, Aniatra Enia, Traneshe, Aniatrat, Trasha Yanea, Trumanea Asha, Tratum Atrahat, Ufe, Kiane, Kiane. Coming down slowly to the upper chest. Yanasheo, 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 Yanasheo. Working slowly down the upper chest. Trakiate shenia, trakatre asha yane, trom akatra shay anyatrat omea. Ooh. Ooh. Going right into the heart center now. Yadre asha yanom, yane yane. Wakranirrutumeya, wakranirrutumeya, trashe, 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 trashe. Andra canresea, tracadrumane, itrasheane. Romane, romane. Trakea trasheani. Trasha, omeane. So massaging center of the chest. Atre esha yane. Trakianesha yom. Itre esha yanea. Itra kanormane. Itrasha yonom. Trasha trat esha trat Trakotoromakaea ya kya trat ome trat. Ite etra ate esha ufe. Trakotoromakatakesheyani. Tra atra what? Whatrom etraketeke Tran trat esha yanom. Tre anea. Ja tresha, 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 tresha. Kiane. Kiane. So we're going quite deep into the heart center, or we're still in the root simultaneously. Yadre katre enishe me drakatre eshanya drakatesha yane. Eane eanea ome. Pausing here in the heart. Adreate ashe, orome anea. Coming down the sternum slowly. Coming right down to the base of the sternum where the ribs meet, the lower ribs meet. Holding here. A lot of energy is moving through here. Coming down into the solar plexus. Massaging here. Slowly working down towards the navel, just above the navel now. There's a lot of energy moving through here. Walking over to me, walking over to me, trasha, 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 trasha. Slowly working down through the navel into the sacral area. Very slowly. Doing little circles, and as we do so, I'm seeing a lot of energy moving through. Coming all the way down. Right down to the root. So right with both hands in the root now, holding here. Yanashio, wakano, trakitara nitanana. Trodno ma katarashayani. Traktorum akatakashay. Yanashio, wakano, trakitara nitanana. Yanashio, wakano, trakitara nitanana. Trotum, 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 trotum. So we're just going deeper into this root to do some stuff in here. Let's see. So I'm simultaneously feeling a lot of movement through the heart space and the root. Yeah. There's a lot of movement here. So I'm just going to hold in the root chakra till I'm guided to move, let some calibration and work happen. We're just moving a lot of energy, so just stay present. Tara esha yane. Watra sha tra eketran insha niatrat isha ufwe. Trakiate esha ya ndromane. Itrakate esha ufwe. Drat ishat inyat Just holding here a little bit longer. Shayana Kotoriana, Shayana Kotoriana, Shayana Kotoriana. Akatakashiniha, Adorsha, Dorsha, 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 Trotum. Troya Drasha Yanea. Troma Katarashay. So I've come out of the root and I've come to the above each knee, resting my palms upwards on each knee with my fingers together, holding here. Just going to hold here. So we're just doing a lot of energy work here, moving things through, recalibrating. Feels like a lot of shifts happening. Drakatrashania, Drat Ishania, Drat Ishania, Drat Ishania. Resting here, resting here. Right on top of the knees now. So now palms out, holding in front of the knees. The backs of the palms are against each knee, pointing down to the earth, down the front of the shins. So just going to go slightly down the legs. Through the feet. So the energies feel like they're going right through the feet down into the earth. Coming back to the top of the knees. Just joining, just facing the palms inwards now. Now coming into the inner knees, pointing down through the lower legs into the earth. Coming back to the top of the knees. Yes, we are complete. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so we close this transmission.
We would like to offer one last collective way of attending to this field, to seal this session, if you will. And we wish to do so by introducing throughout this field the tone of adoration. But it is a very specific type of adoration that we will incite here. In a moment, we will invite you to take a breath up through the root chakra as though we are breathing from the center of earth. All of earth is included in that breath. We bring it up and out the heart in kind of a sigh. But as we do this, we invite you to feel the kind of adoration that a grandparent feels with a newborn. You might imagine the feeling of a grandparent seated in a rocking chair and is handed this new life, full of potential, the miracle of its presence, the miracle of our awareness of it, this new life full of potential. So take a moment to just feel that tone, that energy, that specific energetic signature of the adoration of beholding and holding new life, all new potential. hold that now as we take a collective breath in from the center of Earth up through the root. And a sigh of adoration. Now we will invite you to hold this sense of this collective, all the movement that you feel that you're aware of within you. This movement, including the adoration here. And begin to hold all of this as you bring your awareness back into the body, sitting where you are in your room, in the chair, on the bed, wherever you are, without thinking about what we feel, simply resting in all that we're aware of energetically here. Begin to touch your fingers to your thumbs as you're taking in the feel of the air around you. Staying in this beautiful fullness, richness of all that's moving. You can put your palms together and give them a rub. Give yourself a delicious stretch. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Oh. Welcome back, everybody. Emily, that was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I had so many things going on within me while you were doing this and consensus. And I just want to say we're going to talk, each of us, about things that were moving within us. But I have to say that's probably the softest, gentlest channeling ever that's come through consensus. And it was clear that that was really intentional to do this very softly and tenderly and in a very strategic way to prepare the field. And within me, when they started talking about the fear like an offering onto the field, it looked with what was happening within me. First of all, there was a lot of alchemy going on just collectively, but it looked like almost like when you have like a sifter or something where parts are coming through and the rest is kind of held here. And it was like fear, these energies of fear just drifting down, and some of it coming because it just can't hold anymore. Some of it because it is so exhausted, and some are just like, yay, and just all kinds of, the drifting down of fear. And then as they were working with everybody, kind of just this collective breath here, more continued to come down as we were opening, more coming down. And eventually the fear that was on the ground, as soon as consensus started talking about the acknowledgement of their role, their innocence, and all that we've learned through them, kind of the recognition of the service, right, of exploration of being that fear has held. Um, Above all of the fear that was like I could feel and experience on the field, it was like effervescent, like when you pour carbonated drink into a glass and it bubbles up. It was like all of this, it started dissolving into this debris that was coming up, and then as we would breathe, it would more and more sort of pulled out. But then so everything got to kind of a ready state for you. And as we turned it over to you, it was like the field that consensus was holding was like a hologram of a human structure, but like the collective idea of a human structure. So as you worked, everything was happening on a collective level as well through the system of a human structure. So anyway, that's what was happening on my end. Beautiful.
Thanks, Mary. Well, I don't know where to begin really because I'm that that transmission from consensus was just on another level for me. Like I went into a really deep state myself, and it was just so loving and brought a whole new perspective, like a sigh of relief, and a deeper awareness of how to our relationship with fear, and all that they brought through was just like, oh, and I felt such a softening in my heart as I listened to that, the innocence, like you said, it's just fear doing what it knows what to do.
Yeah.
And all that they brought through was just so, it felt so precious. um it felt deeply precious to me. And I could feel the whole field shifting, like you said, um as you brought through that transmission. And I was kind of like, how am I going to follow this? Because I was like really in this, like my heart, and I was like, oh, in a trance. But yeah, my team followed in, and it was really fascinating how they did that. And I as I bring these things on, I'm kind of out of the way in a way. I'm just moving the energy, so nothing came really consciously to my awareness, but I found it really, really fascinating. But that last part, I did feel so much energy move through as we went down into the root and down into the earth. It was like, whoa, I could hardly hold it. It was like, so I found that really fascinating, and I'm intrigued to see how this work with everyone in the group. And yes, it's so interesting what you said about the hologram of what we believe our human structure to be, and working through that. That was really fascinating. And I do feel that is changing. We're releasing our ideas of actually what it is to be human at the same time, right? And so part of that actually brings up fear as well, because we're like you said, Sensor said before, like imagine there's no foundation of, as we loosen the constructs of what we've learned ourselves to be, right? We kind of are in that space of there's nothing to grasp on. We have to, and that can bring up fear as well, right? As we let go of
Yeah.
those identities and those constructs of what it is to be human, what it is to be. So all that seemed to come in as well. And we really did go to do some deep um work with the earth. So I loved how consensus came through with that at the end. It was just perfect, really perfect. So thank you. Tara Shania, tara no makatara ka shea om e shea nara.
Yeah, right back at you. Um, One of the things that was happening here was, this idea of the whole point of this is to foster the disillusion that's already underway, right? So the way that the preparation happened in the separating fear out here and letting it know that it's invited, it's acknowledged, and this is kind of we're all seeing it. That's intentional to be able to see it, whatever. But also it was serving a purpose and having this kind of separate idea of fear in one place and then the collective body as kind of the observer, but also in its own thing. There were multidimensional things going on all throughout this that I cannot articulate. But part of it was the knowing that as we dissolve the architecture that we've held historically, individually and collectively, over lifetimes, over all kinds of historical stuff, the idea of working so that this is really able to fully not jump back up to be active in a rebuilding of an architecture in a new way, so that it allowed really just to be able to fully dissolve any kind of idea of rebuilding with fear as well. So it's not just dissolving the old, it's also dissolving the potential for the old to come back in and be an active player or co-creator with us in the same old way.
Yeah, I totally concur with that. And it's interesting because this came up for me in the last week. And actually, I had during one of my practices, I actually heard Humpty Dumpty come in, come in, right? Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again, and that was it. It cannot be put back together again.
Yeah.
It is a new way we're running now. It's like those old structures aren't cannot be put together in
Yeah.
that way.
Beautiful. I hope that everybody who's joined us is really clear on the way that Emily and I individually and collectively work energetically. Like it really is all about the energetic structures, the alchemy that's naturally at play in the field, and we just go beyond the constructs of form to work with the vibrational matrix. That's why we call this dissolving the fear matrix, because we're really working at the matrix in multidimensional levels in ways that the human mind can't articulate or grasp. So beautiful. I want to
Yeah,
just,
can I just say that as well, Mary, because
yeah,
that's really important because that is the similarity between us, which, as you can see, the mental constructs are completely out of the picture when we do this work.
yeah,
It is going beyond that. You could not keep up with it mentally anyway, but it is beyond our understanding, and that's why we go into that state of deep presence and allowance for what wants to come through without trying to hook on, like go into the mind and think what's happening, how's it doing it, this is what we're doing, this is what's, it's just not about that. It's really going to a much deeper level that's beyond our comprehension, truly, what the levels and layers, what's actually happening here, right?
yeah,
And also, we're sharing our experience, but everyone in this group will have their own interpretation. We could say interpretation, not really the right word. Their way of moving with these transmissions, right? Depending on where they're at, what's going on for them, as well as us collectively having this experience. And so by doing this, we're holding space for people to come into their own direct experience, right? And their own process without any interference from us, right? So to just allow their natural process to unfold, because what is within Mary and I is within you, right? There's, so everything that we're doing here is to help you come back into that deeper sense of presence and wholeness within you. So
yeah.
just to say
And
that.
on that note, people that are really sort of mind-centric, that are really intellectually based, will have a tendency to really sit with this and try to analyze it and wonder what this meant and what this was doing and what this means. And oh, I'm feeling this. This is probably connected to blah, blah, blah. And that what we're doing then is just putting everything back up in the mental sphere in the analysis. And now we're in the aboutness of the experience and not the direct experience of it. So there will be an opportunity for you to practice the recognition that, oh, I'm in my mind about this, and I can just settle back down into just allowing all that's flowing now and that will continue to flow, because it's not just one and done. This is an alchemical process that will continue. So I want to talk about that's going to lead into some of the things you can expect from what's happening here and as a result of what's happening in the collective. And the first is um, you will likely have a lot of dreams processing a lot of the debris. And those dreams, I speak from experience. My friend Lisa and I, when we were in Iceland, we just had serial dreams all night long with all of this nonsensical stuff. And we were both aware it was just debris clearing from the field. And for me, it was a lot of that terror pushing a lot of things out and through. So you may have a lot of this energetic debris processing, particularly in your dream state while your mind is out of the way. And if that happens, just let it be weird crap. If weird things happen, you don't need to tell a story about them. You're going to probably have things from the past that you haven't thought about or whatever, and you don't need to go down the rabbit hole of them. Just know that these are things processing and flowing through. And in that same way, you may have some triggers that come up to actually activate things to release even more deeply. So you may find yourself having some kind of reaction that's out of proportion to something that's happening here, and you're like, "What the hell is that?" It's just, something coming up from a root. And so we don't need to go down again the rabbit hole of trying to analyze or fix or redirect it. It's just things rising and processing through, things shifting dramatically. You may also, because we're dealing with fear, we're dealing with ancient stuff that's in our system, you may actually have some sense of heaviness or sadness that comes up, and that you may want to feel the need to crawl into bed and sleep. Good. crawl into bed and sleep. Give your body as much rest and nourishment, like literally self-talk nourishment in that intention as possible. You may also feel a great desire for quietude and for stillness and just needing to like not engage. Beautiful, beautiful. Go out in nature, spend time just really feeling what's present for you without telling a story about it or needing it to be a particular way. It is as it is. So this is just leading you into an availability to beautifully stay open and allowing all that's processing and releasing in this time. Was there anything more that you wanted to say about that, Emily, or is that pretty much?
All I'd add is that sometimes you might find you need to move as well because some energy needs to move. So yes, all of what Mary says, but tune in because it might be you feel the urge to sort of stretch, or you might have some somatic release happen, right? Because you might find some sensations come up, and sometimes that might need to be moved through. So if you do yoga or stretching or just walking, or you might feel the urge to sort of dance, or I don't know, movement might help, gentle or vigorous. You know, sometimes if things come up, tune in to what feels right for you is the answer, really. Um, because yes, there usually is ways these to work through the body, right? And emotionally, you might have an emotional release. You might suddenly just really need to have a good cry or a good shout or something. And yes, all Mary said, be gentle and tender with yourself and honor your needs for nourishment, drink plenty of water and ground.
Yeah, and this gentle and nourishing with yourself includes fear. Like
Mm.
when all this terror came up for me, I was so happy. I said to Corrine during the session, "Oh my God, I feel so blessed that it's all so accessible." Right? It's so terrified, and thank God it's here that we can work with it. So changing your, intentionally coming into a very deeply, you'll notice that adoration was the last note we ended on here. This new life, this new potential, like just loving this adoration of everything that's underway, right? That's transitioning out of the old and into the new.
Yeah.
So just remember to keep this.
I love
Now,
that, Mary. That's important to focus on the new because this is like what you said, you know, we can't go back, right? We're not going to, but it's the mind can loop into old stories. And so, like all you said, to be present and focus on that new birth, that new life that's coming through you. And yes, when you can learn to be, know that we're just all of this is coming up because it's available to come up because it's on its way to move, right? So it's a real blessing. This is like so profound what we're doing. And it
yeah.
is there's a reference to it really. And so yeah, I'd say focus on that. I love that last bit about the grandfather because actually that came into my awareness. I don't know, this last week in one of my practices, I had the profound sense of a grandfather coming in and holding me in that much love.
Oh
And
my God.
I was like so touched, and I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever experienced that. And it was that feeling of deeply held and your grandfather's here. And so I feel like that is a lovely energy I love the consensus brought that in because that's lovely to feel held, right? So you can imagine there's a big warm grandfather, holding you in his arms, or grandmother if that's better, but whatever feels right. But oh, so lovely. I love that they did that.
Well, I should say that that's often how how I experience the divine, looking at all of us and
Yeah,
humanity.
yeah.
Like, it's basically looking at this aspect of itself, but such profound adoration and love and oh. All right, so we want to just wrap up here with some resources for you to continue the support. What just started today is not a one and done, as we said. So to support you in your continued processing, Emily has her Tuesday Heart Havens that are always just what's happening in the moment and beautifully supportive. Do you do private sessions as well still here?
Yeah, I do private sessions as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so on Emily's website, which we will include in the YouTube recording of this, so you can go and sign up for her Heart Havens and the private sessions. I have my private community. We do weekly songs. We have a book group and that sort of stuff. So it's a beautiful amplified community setting where everybody can come and have continual support. I also do private sessions and consultations. All of these things are available on each of our websites. I mentioned that I had my own EMDR session with Corrine. Corrine is one of my colleagues. Her information is on my website as well. It is under private sessions. So she'd be happy to work with people. She's very well aware of what's happening in the collective. We have worked together for a long time. Or if your own personal therapist does EMDR, this is a really good thing right now because it works to kind of dismantle things in a bilateral way through neural networks, which is where a lot of the old patterns are deeply entrenched in the body. So that's very helpful, or other kinds of therapeutic techniques as well. We also have somebody in our community that does biofield tuning, and Teresa Cohen, and she's at blueskymeditation.com. And this biofield tuning really works with vibrational stuff to just balance the field as we have all of these big shifts and transformations. So uh, resources like that work energetically can be really, really helpful. And we'll also include Teresa's information in the link. Also, any of the books or other resources that promote like somatic release or breath work or this kind of stuff, like the presence process. My group went through the presence process together, and a lot of people had a lot of beautiful releases through that. So, any other kind of books or practices or whatever that really promote either movement or somatic release or that kind of stuff can be really, really helpful right now. Now, you may be a person that's never resonated before, but this is a time where we're really recognizing the beauty of so many resources being available to us. So feel into what your body's asking for or what this movement of energy is asking for, and just follow those breadcrumbs. Just follow where you're being guided internally. There's a lot of beautiful things. Um, I think that's everything that I had. Did you have anything more, dear Emily?
I don't think so, Mary. I think you've covered everything. That's lovely. I think it's really important people learn to take care of themselves and resource themselves in this way, in whatever way, feels good for them. It is an
Beautiful.
ongoing thing, and it's only going to continue, really. We are in a process, so it's that's the times we're living in, and it's wonderful that we have all these resources now available to us.
Yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed. All right. Well, thank you so much, dear Emily and your team. Thank you to Consensus. Thank to
Thank
all of
you.
you for your
Yes.
presence here. And we trust that our time together will be of benefit to all beings. Namaste, namaste, everybody. Bye.